Everybody ready for the last part? I know I am. Number 7 is a composition of functions thing. What you're going to do, first of all, if you have a number, this is going to be a little different than the other ones that don't. What you want to do is start right here on the right side. And that's actually true of all of them. You'll always start on the right side. But here you want to find f of 0. And what that means is you're going to take 0 and plug it into f. So we are going to take 0 and plug it in for x here and get a number. Whatever number we get, we're then going to take that and plug it in to g. So here, if you plug in 0, you would have negative 0 squared plus 3. But the thing is, squaring 0 is 0. And negative 0 is still 0. Which means when you plug in 0, all you're going to end up with is 3. And as I said, once you get that 3, it says to take the 3 and plug it into g. So this 3, I'm going to plug into g to make 3 minus 1. So 3 minus 1, and 3 minus 1 is 2. And that is the answer. So that's what you do if there is a number there. Plug it in to the one on the right, you get a number, plug that into the one on the left. For the ones where you don't have a number, it gets a little more exciting. What you're going to be taking this time is g and plugging it into f. This x, all it means is that you're still going to have an x in your answer, not much else. So don't worry about it. Worry about the letters. Here, g is being plugged into f, which means g is being plugged into f. So you're going to have a negative g squared plus 3. Negative g squared plus 3. That's how you start. You technically don't need to do this step, but I think it makes more sense this way because you're taking g and plugging it into f, so now you have g squared instead of x squared. But that's when you go over here and say, well, g is x minus 1. So this is going to be negative x minus 1 squared plus 3. And that's the important part that you get to. Because this is the setup. And in terms of like my grading, this gets you like half credit automatically because this is you knowing what f of g of x is. The simplifying part is going to be a pain in the butt. But that is what the inverse is. The reason I'm saying it's a pain is because in order to square a binomial, you have to write it twice in FOIL. So instead of x minus 1 squared, you have to write it twice and FOIL it. Please do not just square these parts. You can't do that. You have to FOIL. And you can either FOIL first and then distribute a negative, or you can distribute a negative just to the first parenthesis like that. Which I guess to save on paper, I'll just distribute this negative right now to make it a negative x plus 1. Negative x plus 1, and then the x minus 1 and the plus 3. So I just distributed this negative sign into the first one, not the second, just the first. And if you FOIL now, negative x times x is negative x squared. Negative x times negative 1 is positive x. 1 times x is positive x. And 1 times negative 1 is negative 1. This plus 3 gets dropped down. And now you can combine like terms. So you have an x plus an x, and you have a negative 1 plus a 3. Those are the like terms. So we got negative x squared, x plus x is 2x, and negative 1 plus 3 is 2. So that is the answer to that question. Like I said, the blue-green here, it's a pain to simplify, but that's what you got to do for full credit. Anything else, the only other alternative getting this correctly is to FOIL first and then distribute the negative sign. By the way, you would end up with that answer. G of g, you are taking g and plugging it into g. Yeah, weird, metaphysics, whatever. G and plugging it into g. So instead of x minus 1, it's going to be g minus 1. But then g is x minus 1. So instead of g, you would write x minus 1. And it would look like that. Instead of g, you're doing x minus 1. Bring down the minus 1. People tend to overthink this a little bit too much. In terms of parentheses, the parentheses aren't actually doing anything here. Because order of operations, you would already do x minus 1 first. So this is the same thing as x minus 1 minus 1, which is x minus 2. And the answer as well. So hopefully that makes sense. These parentheses don't do anything. They're not necessary in this case. They were in this one, but not here. X minus 1 minus 1 is just x minus 2. Okay. Finding the inverse. We did this in the previous video for the graphing. When we graphed it and we found the equation, you are going to change this to a y and make it x equals the cube root of 2y minus 3, like so. And then the next part is to solve for y. If you think you can do it, just pause and try it. To solve for y here, the first thing would be, since you have a cube root, the opposite of cube root is cubing. So you got x to the third. These things will just cancel. So you got 2y minus 3. Add 3 to both sides. And you would have x cubed plus 3. These cancel, you end up with 2y. In the last step, you would divide by 2. And you would get y equals this stuff. X to the third plus 3 all over 2. Boom, 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 boom. That is the answer. That's what you would write over here. Yeah, we just tend to write f inverse of x equals instead of y. But it's that same stuff. X to the third plus 3 all over 2. All right. Number 9 is different than a lot of the other ones, than all of the other ones. It says if g of x is this thing and h of x is that thing, verify that the given g of x and h of x are inverses of each other by showing g of h of x is x and h of g of x is x. It's very important to note that this is not like the other questions because it's not really a question at all. There's no question mark here. It says to verify that they are inverses. That means they are inverses. We already know that for a fact. It's not in question. I'm not asking if they're inverses because they are. It says to show that g of h of x is x and h of g of x is x. That means I know for a fact the answer is x. That is not in question. I don't care what it is because I already told you it's x. The proof is in the pudding, as they say sometimes. You're supposed to be showing all of the work in here. So it is important to know that you have to show every single step that I'm about to show you or you lose credit. And I mean literally everything. I'll put a disclaimer if I'm incorrect on that, but everything I write down, you will need to write down for full credit. The first thing, it says to show that g of h of x. I'm going to write down g of h of x. I then have to write down what g of h of x is. So that's where h is being plugged into g. So this is being plugged into that. So it's going to be the fifth root. And instead of x plus 2, it's going to be h plus 2. So h plus 2. But h is x to the fifth minus 2 plus 2. So once again, it's that h being plugged in here. H is being plugged into g. H is being plugged into g. So instead of h plus 2, you make it x to the fifth minus 2. X to the fifth minus 2 plus 2. After that, you have to simplify. You have to simplify correctly. And by that, I mean you have 5s, you have 2s, both are going to cancel, and your answer is going to be X, as I said it was going to be. But you have to cancel in the correct order. For instance, if you cancel these 5s right now, you will not get full credit, because you have to cancel these 2s first, and you would get the 5th root of X to the 5th. Then these 5s can cancel, and you get the answer of X. There you go. Halfway done. The next thing is to show h of g of x, which this time you're taking g and plugging it in to h. So you're taking g and plugging it into h. So it'll be g to the 5th minus 2. So g to the 5th minus 2, where g is this thing. So this is g to the 5th minus 2, right? G is this thing, so g, 3 to this 5th thing. And this time you have to cancel in the correct order again. Rule of thumb, whatever order you canceled over here, it's the opposite over here. So here we canceled the 2s and then we canceled the 5s, which means for a fact we are going to cancel the 5s and then the 2s. So if you're able to do one but you're not so sure about the other, you can always double check its reverse order. So here, the 5s are going to get canceled first. And you'd end up with x plus 2 minus 2. And then the 2's cancel, you end up with x again, as I said it would be. And there you go. That has verified. So as I said, when I'm grading these things, I look to see, okay, you're going for g of h of x, and you knew g of h of x was this thing. You knew to cancel the 2's and then the 5's, and the answer was x. Good. H of g of x, you knew h of g of x was this thing as opposed to that thing. You then knew to simplify the 5's and then the 2's, and you got x. So there we go. That is full credit for everything. So please make sure you are showing your work for everything. The only thing I technically didn't have to write was this part over there. But otherwise, all of that has to be shown or not full credit. Hopefully this was helpful. I wish you guys best of luck next class when you take this. Or, yeah. So have a good one. Enjoy your day. Thanks for watching.